If the Earth is accelerating upwards and Newton's laws of motion are correct, then it would actually explain everything perfectly. The acceleration would create the pressure and density gradients in our weight. Then, if we look at free fall, we see that the moment an item is released and the force is removed, it is no longer being accelerated by the Earth, and so it continues to travel at the velocity it was traveling at when released, while the Earth continues to accelerate up at 9.8 meters per second squared until the object hits the ground. This would match perfectly what we see in reality. And because the dropped item in free fall is moving at a constant velocity, it explains why the accelerometer reads 0 in free fall, and why there is no displacement in the bottle. With Earth accelerating upwards, everything adds up fine. Del's only justification for denying upwards acceleration is that he claims acceleration would mean your weight would constantly increase. This may be the case in Del's imagination or using Deltonian physics. But with Newton's laws of motion, a constant rate of acceleration produces a constant inertial resistance, or weight if you call it that. Unfortunately for Del, this increasing weight claim of his is nonsense. Let's quickly look at Deltonian physics. Del agrees with Newton that it requires a force to accelerate an object, but unlike Newton's laws of motion, which state it also requires a force to decelerate an object in motion, Deltonian physics claims that things just decelerate by themselves without the need for a force. He also claims that all matter, be it solid, liquid, or gas, all decelerate at the same rate, regardless of mass. This is curious because one of Del's big debunks for gravity when pushing his theory was that there is no known force which can cause uniform acceleration of different states of matter simultaneously, and yet here Del is claiming uniform simultaneous deceleration of all states of matter, and we have already clarified that acceleration and deceleration are the same thing. How is this possible, you may wonder? Well, according to Newton, inertia is a resistance to changes in velocity, but Deltonian physics has redefined what inertia is. According to Del, inertia is now an inbuilt resistance to all motion. According to Deltonian physics, all matter which is in motion is trying to return to stationary without any force being required. According to Del, liquids, gases, and solids of any mass will all decelerate by themselves. And they will all decelerate at the exact same uniform rate simultaneously. As I said previously in this video, it all comes down to who is correct. Is it Newton or Del? For those who might still be clinging on to the possibility that Deltonian physics could be a real thing, there are motion tests which definitively prove whose laws of motion are correct. I think Del and William know full well that motion tests debunk their constant motion claim. And this is why they repeatedly perform endless free-fall demonstrations to distract and capture people's attention, but never perform motion tests. If the inquiry was a genuine, unbiased investigation, then performing motion tests would be the next step to follow on from the free-fall demonstrations, and their channels should be full of them. But they know that it would thoroughly debunk constant motion, so instead they loop back to repeating the same old things. If Del or William ever need to confront the topic of motion tests, they assuredly say something to the effect of, "Motion tests are invalid because you can't overcome the reference frame." And just like that, before people get a chance to realize that what they have said doesn't even make sense, they quickly divert away from the subject. It is like the classic magician's misdirection. Nothing to see here. Acceleration is the only way you can cause displacement. Period. There is not a single example or demonstration showing constant motion creating displacement. And there never will be. That is because it is impossible. So, what is the basis for claiming as constant motion causes displacement in the first place? There is no reasoning or justification whatsoever. Firstly, let's get one thing straight. You do not overcome the reference frame, you add to it. The reference frame, as Schilliam describes it, is just a linear motion, nothing more. We can call it the primary motion. And by adding secondary motions of a known direction and velocity, you can calculate and determine things about that primary motion. Let's use this simple illustration to explain what I mean. If we start with an object here in position A, and it moves in a straight line at a constant rate to position B, it has simply moved from A to B. As far as the object is concerned, it is exactly the same as if we rotate it 90 degrees like this. It is still just moving in a straight line from A to B. The object doesn't care about its orientation. Looking at this primary vertical motion from our example, we see that the red line denotes the vector or direction of travel. If we take that primary motion and simultaneously add the second lateral perpendicular motion to it, we get this. Neither the initial primary motion nor the additional secondary motion are superior. They simply combine to create a new vector or direction of travel. The object does not care if the vector is created from a single motion or a combination of two motions. Once again, it is simply traveling from A to B. In this example, the vertical and horizontal motions are both at the same velocity, so the new vector will be at 45 degrees relative to them. If we were to keep the vertical motion the same speed, but half the speed of the horizontal motion, the object would still travel in a straight line from A to B. However, the new direction of travel would be at 22.5 degrees. The plumb bob shows us the direction of travel. If it is to be believed that vertical constant motion affects the plumb bob, then horizontal constant motion must also affect the plumb bob. You cannot have it only work in one direction. But it doesn't matter how fast you travel horizontally. If the velocity is constant, the plumb bob will always hang down vertically in its original position. This definitively proves that constant motion is not the cause of the vector. However, if you accelerate at constant rate horizontally, the plumb bob will show the new vector. And if you accelerate horizontally at 9.8 meters per second squared, the plumb bob will hang fixed at 45 degrees. This absolutely proves Newtonian physics correct, and it proves that the Earth must be accelerating. Hang a plumb bob from your car rear view mirror next time you go for a drive and try it for yourself. You cannot argue with this. Now for the final nail in the coffin, I'll highlight an example of adding vertical motion. For this test, we are going to look at your weight. We have two claimed causes for your weight. We have constant motion, and we have acceleration. With the constant motion claim, your weight must be proportional to the velocity. This means that if you increase the velocity of the upwards motion, your weight must also increase. With the acceleration claim, your weight must be proportional to the rate of acceleration. This means that an increase in the rate of acceleration will increase your weight. This simple test clearly shows that acceleration causes weight, and constant motion has no effect on weight whatsoever. Once again, this thoroughly debunks the constant motion claim. You cannot argue it. So what are the conclusions? Earth accelerating upwards at 9.8 meters per second squared is perfectly plausible. It is in agreement with experiments, and from inside the reference frame it can't be refuted. The constant motion claim and its required deceleration are nothing more than pseudoscience. The theory is provably incorrect and can be debunked in numerous ways. I have no idea what the motive could be for pushing the constant motion claim. I could speculate that perhaps the original Flat Earth Society claim of upwards acceleration was the truth in plain sight. Perhaps this new constant motion spin has been put out there to cause further division in the flat Earth community and to discredit upwards motion. Constant motion is provably false. It is amazing that if you say something with enough confidence and conviction, and if you repeat it enough times, then people will believe it. Big Del will no doubt get angry, shout a lot, then double and treble down and get right back to repeating his sales pitch.